Welcome, everybody, to WagerTalk Today. I am Lawrence Prez and Teddy covers my co-host. We got a great show lined up for you. Masters Week. We're going to delve deep into the Masters on tomorrow's show with Nick Foreman. But Andy Lang is coming on today, and he's going to discuss the Masters, another prop bet on the UFC, and a prop bet in basketball. Steve Merril will be joining him right after. He's got an NBA bet and a Major League Baseball bet, and we'll end the show with Dave Sharapan. Obviously, Teddy's big game breakdown and my daily presidential address. And we got a good What Did Bettors Learn coming up. I even know kind of the topic, and I very rarely do. With that said, it's $2 Tuesday. Andy Lang, our featured handicapper. How are you, my friend? Where are you?
I am, the eclipse came and I just decided it was time to run away. So I'm on the run. I'm on the lam. I just can't take the universe anymore. So, I'm just out and about taking care of some stuff for my production company, and it's a beautiful day out here. So just took a step out here to enjoy a little bit of nature.
Well, let's start with a little bit of nature in the Masters this weekend. You've got a top 20 pick for us that is a little bit juicy, but nothing ridiculous. Xander Schauffele. What are we going to do with him?
Yeah, Schauffele he's just a top 20 machine. He's playing such consistent golf. He's frustrating because he doesn't win, but he does finish inside like the top 5 and top 10 all the time. And it makes him a great bet on these top 20s. He's minus 165, and that includes ties. Make sure you check your books and make sure you're playing on includes ties. You don't want to get caught with the dead heat rules. So he's finished top 20 in 4 out of the last 5 years at the Masters. So we know he's got great course history here. And he's finished top 20 in 5 out of 7 tournaments this year. And those are in elevated events, which means he's doing this against the best players in the world, stacked fields. This is a really good price on a guy that just always shows up at the big tournaments. He always shows up against the best players in the world. And he's number 2 in total strokes gained this year in this field. He's a top-notch golfer. I can't bet him to win because he just never closes the door. But a top 20, oh yeah, absolutely. He'll be in one of the final groups on Sunday, I believe.
So you talked about a situation where, you want to bet on a guy, but he's not going to win. This is the way to do it. And that makes a ton of sense to me. The question is, when you start to lay this type of juice, does that make a lot of sense to you? Because obviously we're talking about minus 165 here. And I want to ask you about the books with the tie. If you tie for 20th, how does that work? You say some books you get paid, some books you don't, you get prorated. Talk about that for a minute as well.
Yeah, it's so important, and we harp on this every single week in golf. So they have dead heat rules, and then they have payout full on ties. So a dead heat rule means if you have a player, top 20, and he gets for 20th with like 5 other players, that chop gets split into 5 ways. So while you get a little bit of a return, it's not enough to turn a profit. Paid out full in ties are books that pay out a full win, even if they're tied for 20th. So it's so important to take that option. You may have to lay 10, 15, even 20 cents more, but it's absolutely 100% worth it. There's nothing worse than having a guy tied for 20th and you get like 1/5 of your expected payout. So this week, because it's the Masters, you're going to see the books offer a lot of options that they don't normally offer. And so pretty much every book is going to be paying out on ties this week. But I know BetMGM and DraftKings are 2 of the domestics that this has been available on. So make sure you're playing it to pay out on ties and not dead heat rules.
Andy Lang joining us. And Andy, you're going to co-host with me tomorrow. We'll discuss why and what did bettors learn. I want to go deep into the Masters tomorrow as well. I want to talk obviously about Scottie Scheffler. I want to discuss winners and how to bet them. Do you bet them, in the top 5 placing, etc. So tomorrow we're going to go deep into the Masters, really spend a lot of time on that tournament. It's such an exciting tournament. But let's move on to UFC. It's UFC 300. It's a big UFC. Diego Lopez against Sadiq Youssef. Diego is minus 135. Where are we going on this one?
Oh, I love Diego Lopez. You could argue he's got the best hair in all of UFC. Just gorgeous haircut.
Ridiculous.
His hair is absolutely flowing, wavy.
No, it's idiotic. It's utterly idiotic. Teddy's hair is way better.
So Diego Lopez is one of these younger up-and-coming fighters, fairly new to the UFC. So he makes his UFC debut on short notice against a beast in Movsar Evloev. And not only did he hold his own, he almost won. Almost pulled off several submissions. It was a beautiful showing in his debut, short notice against an elite fighter. And his next two fights, he won in the first round, one by submission and one by knockout. This guy's the real deal. He is absolutely the real deal. His grappling and submission game is elite already. He showed insane power by knocking out Pat Sabatini in his last fight, a tough guy to knock out. And he's going up against this guy, Sadiq Youssef, who I'm just not really sold on. He's been around for a while. He's got a good record. I don't want to use the word fraudulent, but it's just not that impressive. His last fight, he won the first round against Edson Barbosa, and then he proceeded to lose the next 4 rounds. He got tired. And the fight before that, he got a submission win, but it was against a journeyman that's no longer in the UFC. Youssef, as soon as he throws a certain amount of punches, his energy is gone. And he is not going to be the better grappler. He's not going to be the better submission artist. And I don't think he's going to be the more powerful guy on the feet. Youssef has good volume, but it's only for about a round. Diego Lopez is the real deal. And one of the reasons I want to take this is if he has an outstanding performance, which I expect him to, you're never going to see this price on him against the caliber of this opponent. He's going to move up the rankings very, very quickly. So this may be one of the last opportunities to get him at this price. I expect him to put on a really, really wicked performance this Saturday.
Diego Lopez worth laying the minus 135, minus 140 with against Sadiq Youssef. Let's talk one NBA prop for a busy NBA card on Tuesday. 14 games on the slate for tonight. It's not like the association takes many days off, although they took yesterday off. They'll take Saturday off as well this week. But tonight, the Houston Rockets. And Jabari Smith is someone you've got your eye on. The Rockets, home dogs to a defensive-minded Orlando Magic team. Jabari Smith's been pretty consistently going over the total. He's gone over 1.5 three-pointers in all 4 games that he's played this month. I counted 14 of his last 18. Do we expect more of the same on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I'm just riding the trend here. It is a tough matchup. Orlando ranks high in all defensive categories, even 3-point defense. But I'm just playing the number here. And you said it, Teddy. He's been going over quite a bit recently. I'm not sure why, but I'm just going to accept it. For the season, he's averaging 5 3-point attempts per game. In his last 7 games, he's averaging 8. So we only need him to hit 2 to go over this. So if he's averaging 7 and 8 attempts, I love him to get over this 1.5. He's played 32 minutes plus in each of the last 7 games, easily gone over in each of the last 7 games. And this is one of these trends that has really picked up steam over the last 4 to 5 weeks. He wasn't going over a ton at the beginning of the year, but it's a different time of year. Houston, they kind of blew it, tried to chase down Golden State to get into the play-in, but these guys are still putting up 3-point shots. They're still playing tough. This is a coach that always wants his players to play 100%. I love the minutes. I love the attempts, and I love the consistency that he's been hitting this play. So, yeah, free play is going to be Jabari Smith over 1.5 made 3-pointers.
And what's the juice we're willing to lay on a prop like this? Obviously, when a guy flies over every game, you're going to start having to lay juice with his over 1.5 3-pointers props. But is there an upper echelon here that you wouldn't bet it above? Or are you comfortable laying this, up to minus $2 or whatever? Talk to me about price points.
It's hovering around minus 140, minus 138. I wouldn't expect it to get over minus 150. I would still lay that. I would still be comfortable with it. I believe in the trend. So if it does, for some reason, get over minus 150, probably not worth laying off, or maybe you lower the percentage a little bit. But for where it is right now, yeah, absolutely, this is a play.
Andy Lang, everybody. Andy will be co-hosting with me tomorrow. Andy, It's $2 Tuesday. Tell us, you are the $2 Tuesday handicapper. Fill us in on what's going on.
Yeah, we're heading to the NBA. No games last night, as Teddy mentioned, but a huge slate with tons of betting opportunities. I have been very low volume in 2024. Only had 22 plays, but I've won 14 of them. So I will go 4 or 5 days with no plays in the NBA, waiting for the right spot. Tonight, it worked out perfect. It's a huge slate. Great play with a really, really bettable number. So I'd take advantage of that. We've got a 5% Masters play that is up, 5% UFC 300 play that is up. But for tonight, let's cash in the NBA, and then we move on to UFC and the Masters.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Andy Lang, everyone. Steve Merril still to come, Dave Sharapan as well. If you guys are enjoying the show, take a second out of your time and please hit that like button. Teddy, bunch of stuff to talk about before we get into what did bettors learn. My question to you is, and I have deep, deep respect for both Adam Trigger and Mark Zeno. So you think UConn was undervalued last night?
The question is whether they were overvalued or not. And obviously, you and I came with one opinion on that. And those two, and look, nothing but respect. And we don't diss our guests after they leave. But I didn't understand what they were saying, that they were overvalued. And I still don't understand what they were saying, that it was overvalued. You know, if a team continues to cover point spreads, they're not an overvalued commodity. And that's a lesson. I forget, what was the year that the Vikings were great? Was that, I had to be my first year in town.
Like,
I learned that lesson days. This is when Randy Moss was a rookie.
Yeah, Warren Moon days.
15-1. That was my first NFL season in Vegas. And I remember, again, I'm listening to a ton of stuff back then. Listen, you know, all you're doing is listening. I listen to radio, watching videos, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, oh, they're overvalued. They're overvalued. You got to bet against Minnesota. You got to bet against Minnesota. And all they did was continue to cover point spreads and continue to cover point spreads. The Rams and the Greatest Show on Turf in '99 were a very similar story. Oh, they're overvalued. Well, step in front of them, find out what happened. You know, so that's a lesson I learned, I thought, fairly early in my career in Vegas, is the elite teams aren't automatic bet against. They're elite for a reason. And, you know, UConn certainly showed that last night.
Yeah, and you know, Kelly ran a series of videos. We all participated. I did one with her where I did a video where it was "Don't be a hero." And last night was really that typical thing. I had a 4% play on UConn. And to me, it was one of those things where, is this the game that UConn doesn't cover? Way to go. Yeah, you know what? It wasn't the game, Teddy. It wasn't the game. And there was no handicap involved. Like, you don't need to be a rocket scientist here. You don't need to do power rating, power polls. You don't need to read reams of info and listen to all the geniuses. They have already told you what they're going to do. They're going to play it close in the first half, just like I predicted. And then they're going to annihilate you in the second half, just like I predicted. Don't be a hero. And that's the important message here. It's not about UConn or Purdue last night. It's about, you know, is this the game? Well, it's not. Teddy, before, and we'll get into what bettors learn, but real quick. Last year, I did not have one single 5% play in baseball. Zero. Not one. Today is my first 5% baseball play in, well, a season and whatever this season is, a season 0.1. Yeah, I found an incredible spot to step out in baseball tonight. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. I have a 5% play up in baseball, so I have a 3% NHL play, and I'm on a 7-0 run in NHL. So that's out of the way. Steve Merril and Dave Sharapan to come. But I ask you, what we talking about and what did bettors learn?
Well, we just talked a little bit about UConn and whether they were undervalued or overvalued or not. Now we can talk, and I don't talk enough about my personal life. I really don't. Sometimes I have to. My son Isaac got suspended from school again yesterday, and I got to go meet with the principal tomorrow morning. It's going to cause me to miss another show. This happened 2 weeks ago. Last time, they had frozen ices at school, and Isaac was horsing around with his buddy, dumped an ice down his shirt right in front of the vice principal. There's a no physical contact rule or whatever, so he gets suspended. So yesterday, we get a call. Isaac's in a fight in class. He has a kid in a headlock. I got to go to school and pick him up. Dad, he was my friend. We were screwing around at recess earlier. I started with him again. We were both laughing and wrestling. He pinned me too. I didn't even think it was such a big deal. Me and the other kid were texting afterwards, which is, a reasonable argument. See, here's my question. I want to ask the audience poll time.
We have
Teddy
it up
bring
there.
the hammer down, or should Teddy take it easy on the kid? I'm late to the party. I only had one kid. And look, you can't be getting suspended repeatedly from school. You can't be getting a reputation as a bad kid. I don't want to underreact to this spot. I don't want to think of himself as a troublemaker or a problem child or any of that stuff. But I don't want to overreact either. I grounded him yesterday. I took away his phone. And what he did in class, you can't do. But look, you did it. I did it. We all did it. I'm not sure how mad I should be. And when I'm not legit mad at my kid, I end up being too soft. So I want your feedback. I legitimately am asking for feedback on this. Let me know in the comments. Take a look at the poll. I'm fascinated by, because I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should really bring the hammer down here.
I'm going to tell you how I would handle it.
He's got 5 hours of chores today that he's going to do while he's suspended. He's going to weed the whole yard and clean his closet and all that kind of stuff. But, multiple suspensions, you can't look past it. Lawrence, can you?
Yeah, so Teddy, listen, it's an interesting situation. And obviously, I'm a parent. My children are much older than yours. I've gone through this, although I never had any suspensions. And I have 2 daughters who have been really a pleasure to raise from start to finish. 35 votes are in. I think it's like 70-something% to drop the hammer. And I disagree with that. Here's the problem that you as a parent, that I see you facing. I know Isaac, and Isaac's a really good kid. He's kind, he's warm, he's engaging, he's thoughtful, he's intelligent, he's talented, he's artistic. You got yourself a really excellent child.
Sure.
He was horsing around. He was horsing around yesterday. He didn't get into a fight. He was what we call roughhousing with his best buddy. Now,
not his best buddy, and it was in class.
Whatever the case may be, the bottom line is, I'm not going to drop the hammer on my kid for something that I did. I will never be a hypocritical parent. I rolled joints for my daughter. Why? Because when I was her age, I rolled joints for me. I'm never going to be a hypocritical parent. If it was good enough for me, it was good enough for them. I roughhoused. You roughhoused. I'm not going to punish my child for something that I don't agree with or something that I did. What I will do is explain to my child the importance of rules, understanding why they're there, recognizing that you might disagree with them, but understanding that you need to follow them. It is, if you want to make change in society, you have to do it inside of society. So ultimately, what Isaac needs to understand is he did wrong based on someone else's rules. He has to recognize those rules. He has to stick to those rules, and he has to wait till he gets home or goes to his friend's house to beat the shit out of him. So I'm not dropping the hammer here. What Isaac did was not egregious under any circumstances, and all because society has become unbelievably soft doesn't mean he should get punished. I do like that you're giving him chores today. I think that's excellent, given that, hey, he's not at school. He might as well do something around the damn house. But I am not dropping the hammer on a kid who I know is a legitimately good kid. Steve Merrill's got a few kids himself. What do you think, Steve?
First of all, I tuned in. I saw Andy outside. He didn't have his glasses on, so as a good parent, you should always have your glasses on your kids. So Andy's still looking for that solar eclipse. You guys should have let him know he's a day late. But look, Teddy, my thought on this was Isaac is a great kid. Obviously, when this happened a couple weeks ago, you and I talked about it. I said, this is ridiculous. He dropped a cone of ice on a kid. But as Prez said, you got to play by the rules, even if you don't agree with them. And you don't need suspensions on your transcript going forward once you're in high school and whatnot. That doesn't help. And the other thing, Teddy, I will say, the only thing that bothers me here, even though I like Isaac, I think this thing's blown out of proportion, is he should have been walking on eggshells after what happened a couple weeks ago. And the fact that he didn't do it, that's my big concern here is like, man, you got to be careful. Like you're on double secret probation, right? You got to walk a little careful the next couple months. I think that's the lesson to be learned more than anything here. But Prez, you hit the nail on the head, man. I mean, our society is so freaking weak. It's ridiculous. And I'd be losing it if my kid got suspended for dumping a cone of ice. But then it's hard for Teddy to go in there tomorrow now and be like, this is ridiculous. It just happened 2 weeks, because now it's like you guys knew the rules and it's a tough spot for you.
Yeah. Good luck with it. Keep us posted, Teddy.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate it. And look, I genuinely appreciate your guys' take. And thanks for the feedback. And I'll check it. I'm going to go in the comments and take a look at what people wrote after
Teddy,
the show. I appreciate it.
You need to run for the school board, Teddy. That's how you fix this and change these stupid rules.
Yeah, run for the school board. Good one. Teddy, we'll end with this. He really is genuinely a great kid. And it's like minus 12,000 that he kicks your ass in life. So good for you, bro.
I look forward to that. Yep.
Steve Merril, Boston Celtics
goal.
playing the Bucks. One of our listeners really wants to bet the Celtics on the money line here. Pointed out that the Milwaukee Bucks sucks. I'm not going to get into that or not. Sucks is a big word. Where do we go in this game?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this game for a few reasons. First of all, it's obviously a spotlight game tonight, national TV game. There's 12 NBA games, by the way. I just did videos for a couple other games for the NBA TV show. And don't forget, we have an early edition. Kevin Dolan and I broke down 4 games this morning. And then we'll have the live edition later after 4 o'clock Eastern, where we take the viewer questions. And it is a huge card, 28 of the 30 teams playing tonight, of course. I did 2 other games tonight for those videos. But this one is a spotlight game. And a couple hours ago, about an hour and a half ago, the Celtics started the steam higher, 2.5. And I found that interesting because they really have nothing to play for here. I mean, they locked up the Eastern Conference several weeks ago. They've got the best record locked up for the number 1 overall seed. And I don't believe in just sitting guys a couple weeks out from the playoffs, because I do think you got to keep the rotation going, the minutes going. But you got to be careful as well. And I think one of the reasons this line steamed up an hour ago, Giannis is listed as questionable. He has been all morning. But the reason the Celtics went higher, I believe, is because Brown and Tatum aren't even on the injury report, which means they should be playing tonight. And that's fine. I just can't imagine they're going to play their full normal minutes. So I'm starting to think maybe we're getting some value here with Milwaukee at 2.5 and higher. The Bucks have not been in good current form, but I just feel like this game means more to them. The home team is a perfect 3-0 straight up in the 3 meetings so far this season. And I know Boston continues to win, even with nothing to play for, but they just beat a terrible Portland team. Barely beat Sacramento by only 1. That was really the only competitive game. Thunder have been banged up as well. Before that, a bad Hornets team, a banged-up New Orleans team. I think this is actually a step up in class, and I know the Bucks are just 1-6 straight up at ATS their last 7, so it's hard for me to make a case otherwise. I just feel like this line's rising higher, maybe for the wrong reasons. Maybe Boston brings their A game. If they do, they're the best team in the league, but I'd take a shot with Milwaukee in this game as a home dog tonight.
So the Bucks have just lost at home to the Grizzlies, the Raptors, and the Knicks in their last 3 games. And each time after the first loss, they're like, oh, no, we're going to dig deep. And no, we're coming together. And then you saw the same thing the next time out. Do you trust Milwaukee? Is Milwaukee's full season power rating real right now? Or is this a team that maybe we should forget their full season numbers, just bet against them every game until proven otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a red flag when you're one of the top teams of the league and you get rid of your coach midseason, right? So, I mean, I guess in hindsight, that was obviously an indicator something's not right in Milwaukee, and Doc Rivers hasn't exactly turned things around. And you're right, Teddy. I mean, this team is 1-6 straight up ATS their last 7, so they're not playing up to the top 3 seed caliber maybe that their power rating has them. With that said, though, this is still a team with Lillard's in tonight. Middleton is probably, he's a guy that's been out the majority of the season. Definitely want Giannis playing. He's listed as questionable. I think he will go, but we got to keep an eye on that. We're still several hours away from tip-off. But I think this Milwaukee team still has the pieces to turn it on. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that tonight in a spotlight game. And don't forget, I know they blew that game against the Knicks, but they still had a double-digit lead at halftime. They weren't getting run out of the gym like the final score might indicate. So there is definitely some upside, but I don't disagree with you. We need to see it sooner than later, especially with the playoffs around the corner.
Steve Merril joining us. And guys, I muted myself because I started laughing so hard. I got to go back to Isaac. I'm sorry. Chuck Pod writes, geez, we used to play a game called Run, Tackle, Kill, Smear. Would have been suspended 100 times over. And I started laughing because I used to play a game called Salad, and it was like 100 guys, and we would kick a tennis ball around. And if the tennis ball went through your legs, you were basically beaten up until you touched the wall. You were kicked, whipped at, punched. And I'm like,
but that's all recess
that.
stuff. That's recess stuff versus this is happening in class. So we played the
Still wouldn't have been suspended for that in class even back in our day, though. You might have been disciplined or scolded for like 2 minutes if the teacher even cared. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, tell us more, Chuck, and the rest of you guys. What game? I mean, we used to play.
I can only imagine what our viewers did as kids. Good God.
Dude, we used to play a game where a kid would be up against a wall and we would whip tennis balls at his head.
Yeah, right
at his head.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay. And you had to catch it and then throw it back at someone else to get off of that. Yeah,
I mean, eye-hand coordination. That's why our generation had better eye-hand coordination. This is all making sense now.
Oh, my Lord. Okay, Cubs and Pirates, Steve. Where are we going? Padres. Cubs and Padres. Where are we going in this game?
Yeah, the Padres, the second half of the game last night, they were catching every ball whipped at them. And Chicago had a 99% chance of winning in the sixth inning when they had the massive lead, and they ended up losing 9-8. It was just a slugfest shootout. But what's interesting, guys, is you dig in deeper into this box score, you can't really say it was a slugfest shootout. I mean, the Chicago Cubs put up 8 runs on 8 hits. Only 5 guys left on base. So 13 total hits and left on base, and they had 8 runs. I mean, they should have had a lot less than that. So in hindsight, maybe it wasn't a fluke that they went ice cold that second half of the game. And I think that could linger a little bit tonight into this rematch here. Padres, yes, they put up 9 runs in that comeback, but once again, they started off ice cold the first half of the game. The Padres also had only 8 hits. So each team had only 8 hits, which is like average for baseball. Equates to like 4 runs normally. And they put up 17 runs total. So I'm not going to say both offenses are hot. They're not. The Cubs still have single-digit hits now in 4 straight games. Padres have single-digit hits in 6 of their last 7 games. And I think that was a misleading high-score game last night. This is your late-night national TV game, 10 o'clock Eastern. Take a look at under 8 minus 120. And you might want to do it sooner than later because some of the sharper books around the world are now down to 7.5. minus 0.5. 8's not really a key number, but it's still better than 7.5. 8 under 20. Grab it while it's still available. Cubs and Padres.
Do you worry at all that we saw both bullpens get used up last night? Certainly both teams use those pens extensively. Would you be interested in the first 5 here because of that? Or is this just a full game? And, hey, you're playing at Petco, so don't worry so much about the unders.
2 excellent points, Theodore. First of all, Petco under is always worth a look. As you know, it's a very pitcher-friendly park. But, yeah, the bullpens is the one concern for me in this game because they were both taxed last night. It's a quick turnaround in this situation. So, yeah, the first half line makes some sense. It's 4.5 under 25. Obviously, 5 would have been golden, but you're not going to get that when the game is 8. So you're still getting a pretty reasonable number with the total being 8 going down to 7.5. Under 4.5, I think, does make some sense. And I would grab that sooner than later as well because I do see a 4 over 20 at one of the sharper international books right now. So it looks like that line is dropping also.
Hashtag free Isaac is trending.
That's fantastic.
Teddy, I don't know if this is Isaac or not Isaac, but I think he's in the chat room.
Uh-oh.
He might be.
Yeah.
He's got time. He ain't busy with school.
Isaac, look, here's the bottom line, Isaac. I bought a place in Whistler. That is the best ski resort in the world. I told Teddy to send you up next March to come skiing with me and the boys. If you get suspended one more time, I am retracting that offer. Hashtag free Isaac. What do you got to promote, Steve Merril?
That is good parenting, folks. 2 suspensions, all right, but if you get that darn 3rd suspension in a month, no more skiing at a resort, son. That's how we're going to teach you. But in all seriousness, Isaac,
Hey,
if you are
it's a
watching,
big
we still
punch.
love you. You are seriously a great kid. The lesson here, though, got to pick your spots. That's all I'll say. But otherwise, it's hard to be mad about horse playing with your friends. We're seeing it well. We cashed last night with the under in the Purdue game. We had Purdue on Saturday, cashed with the under last night. I was not getting in front of that UConn freight train. I did say the line was inflated, but that didn't mean I wanted anything to do with fading UConn. So went with the total instead on a 70% all sports run. I've got 2 baseball best bets up now for tonight on Tuesday, still finishing up the NBA card. It's a huge card tonight with 12 games to choose from. And oh, by the way, number 1 this season in the NBA, number 1 all time on NBA sides at WagerTalk in the history of the site. Not a bad time to get the rest of the NBA through the finals for just $188. Tremendous value from my number 1 ranked NBA season. Get the rest of the season right now for $188. That gets you the next 2 months plus. No promo code needed. Check it out along with daily free plays. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Steve. Teddy, what a fun show. Okay, we got your big game breakdown and then Dave Sharapan joining us. Let's go, bro.
Big game breakdown. Let's talk some NBA for Tuesday night. The LA Clippers and the Phoenix Suns. Looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen. Seeing a split line for the Suns right now, 7/7.5. So if you like Phoenix, make sure to find a -7. If you like the Clips, make sure you find a +7.5. That's why we always encourage you to have as many outs as you possibly can. You don't have to buy half points. You can just find the book that has the half point you were interested in. All right. Total in this game sitting 226.5 as we speak. Look, I've been running good, guys. 49-22 across sports over the last 4 weeks, over more than 73 units of profit during that span. The NBA 12-4 the last 16, 96-64, 60% counting every play every day since November. 293-208, better than 58%, up 214 units of profit in the NBA since 2022. This has been a very good sport for myself and my clients, and the postseason has been phenomenal. 53-34 over the last 2 postseasons. Let's talk about the concepts here, because here's Phoenix coming off another embarrassing loss, this time to New Orleans. And we've made some money betting on the Suns. We've talked about here on the show about betting on the Suns coming off a bad loss. And, they're 5-0 straight up following their last 5 losses, including some, impressive outright upsets. They won at Denver. They beat Cleveland, not just feasting on the weak during that span. There's urgency. Frank Vogel, quote, "We've all got to own it. We've all got to be better. These games are so important." Kevin Durant, "Every game is important to everybody now. It's do or die for everybody. Watching or spectating, it's hard not to see it. Knowing you can't control too much, just try to focus on us." They're facing a Clippers team that just rallied from 26 down in the second half to beat Cleveland over the weekend. The good news is they rallied to get the W. They dug deep. It was a max intensity game for LA. The bad news, of course, is that we're playing without Kawhi, and they were down by 26 at home to the Cavs. The Clippers' defense in that second half, again, they allowed 80 in the first half. They allowed 38 in the second half. When they bring it on D, this D is elite. The Suns' offense, and I've seen it a couple times in recent weeks, they're struggling. It's one jump shot after the next, and when the shots aren't falling, things get very stagnant. Phoenix, with all of their shooters, they scored 105 or less in 5 of their last 7 games, 5-2 to the under during that span. So while I lean Suns minus the points, I'm not pulling the trigger there. I think the under here is the better way to look. Under 226.5. Suns and Clippers. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Prez.
Thank you, Teddy Covers. Dan, do we have Dave Sharapan? Okay, so Teddy, no Dave Sharapan. So here's what we're going to do instead. While we wait for him, I'm going to go through the NHL board. If you've got any questions, feel free. I'm going top to bottom. Boston playing Carolina tonight, guys. Hate the side here, but I do like the under. It's 5.5. Both of these teams are playing absolutely insane defense right now. Like, honest to God, It's phenomenal stuff. You look at Carolina. This Carolina team has held 3 teams to 0 goals in their last 5 games. Boston has allowed 3 goals in their last 3 games. I like under the total in that Boston game. When you look at Washington and Detroit, I'm betting against Washington from here until the end of time. This team is old. It's decrepit. It's miserable. They've been in must-win mode for 2 weeks now. They've lost 6 straight games. I am looking at the Detroit Red Wings on the money line. Florida playing Ottawa tonight, guys. I'm not touching this game at all. Philadelphia against Montreal. Philadelphia is a nightmare, just like Washington. Montreal's getting money, plus 125. Although I think Montreal stinks. There's so much value in this Montreal bet. Plus 125 against a team who hasn't won in 2 weeks and has also watched their playoffs slip away. New Jersey playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. I like the over in this game here at 6.5. We saw Toronto beat Pittsburgh last night 3-2. You don't need to follow with the graphics. I'm racing through this. New Jersey Devils and Toronto take over the total. New York Islanders playing the Rangers tonight. Look, there's value on the Islanders here. I mean, the Rangers are an incredible hockey team, no doubt. One of the best teams in the league. They are playing their backup tonight in Varlamov. I like the Islanders slightly, but I prefer the under 5.5 goals. I think if the Islanders win games and they need to, it's going to play to the under. Tampa Bay playing Columbus, minus 345, a total of 6.5. I like Tampa Bay minus 2.5 here, guys. That'll bring all the juice down to even money. And I think Tampa Bay wins this game going away, somewhere around 5-1, 6-2 type of a thing. Dallas playing Buffalo. I love the Stars in this. I love Buffalo in this spot. It's plus 190. Dallas just came off a big win against the Colorado Avalanche, and it's one of those perfect storms where they're coming home and they just came off a big, big win. This is one of those soft spots for Dallas. Too much value on Buffalo, and Buffalo are playing good hockey even though they lost their last game. Plus 190. Nashville and Winnipeg. I like the under in the Nashville and Winnipeg game. 5.5 is the total. What I like here is that both of these teams want to play to the under. And when both teams want to play to the under, and you got Soros in one net and Hellenbach in the other, hey, okay, you want to play to the under? We're going to bet the under. I think we see a 3-1, 3-2 type of a hockey game. Colorado Avalanche playing the Minnesota Wild. I love Colorado in regulation here. This is probably my favorite play so far on the card. You have Colorado at minus 130 in regulation. This Colorado team just lost 2 games in a row, both against Dallas and Edmonton. Now they are ripe for a real strong performance. And the Minnesota Wild, hats off to this team. This Minnesota Wild team could not have tried any harder to make the playoffs. I think they tried harder than any single team to make the playoffs. They literally pulled their goalie twice in overtime to try and make the playoffs, and alas, they did not accomplish that goal. It is impossible to keep your intensity and emotions up for 2 months trying to make it to the playoffs. Then when you realize you screwed up and didn't, well, that's an adrenaline dump. Bet against Minnesota from here till the end of the season. LA Kings and Anaheim, I got nothing for you in that game. Seattle against Arizona. I like Seattle here. It's minus 145. I think that's a short number against a shitty Arizona team that has won 2 games in a row. And Calgary and San Jose. Frankly, I would bet San Jose at plus 180. I think there's value there, even though they stink. Teddy, that's every game of on the board. No requirement for a daily presidential address. Guys, buy, bet, play, win. Let's go. 5% baseball play up tonight. First one in a year and a half. Teddy, keep us posted on what happens with Isaac tomorrow. Lots of love, my friend. Take us home.
Sure. The poll is pretty close right now. We got 100 votes in, and 53% say drop the hammer. Can't get suspended multiple times. That being said, a good, sizable minority still say take it easy on the kid. clearly fluctuating in between. But that's going to wrap it for the Tuesday edition of Wager Talk Today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to hang out with Prez and I. We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Between now and then, enjoy the games and best of luck with all your wagers.